Hello everyone, welcome back. It is the last Sunday night of March 2021. It's a stormy, crazy, wild night out there weather-wise. We had some really great weather this weekend though on Saturday, so we were able to get outside and do a lot of really great work, which I filmed. You're going to see that coming up soon. We are installing a new container garden along the fence that we built in the fall. So I've got 5 200-gallon containers. We were first kind of defining the area with cedar landscape timbers and then mulching it all in, and then I have to fill the containers still. That's still in progress because today's weather was not nice at all. It was very cold, rainy, nasty out there. But we're down in the seed room here, and I thought it would be fun to kind of take a look at some of these plants now that they're a little bit more mature. I showed our system a little bit ago, many videos ago, but so here's our LED lights. I just put these wooden spacers up there between the floor joists to hold onto the lights, and that allows me to kind of raise and lower them. These are just those hyper tough LED shop lights. I mentioned get the 5,000 lumen. You can see how bright it is here. Having these mirrors really helps too. These mirrors kind of reflect a lot of the light around. I'm not sure how much difference it makes, but I'm sure it does help. It doesn't hurt, let's put it that way. But these lights do a really great job, as you can see. So I thought we'd take a look at some of our crops and talk a little bit about some of the things that we're growing. So here's our broccoli rabe. Look at this. Look at the roots on this thing. It's crazy. Now, I have it in a tray, so these roots are getting water, but this is ready to go in the ground pretty soon. I've actually had a much better luck growing this in the fall, where I sow it outside in maybe July or August, and then it grows just naturally outside. The problem that you have sometimes, we're in southwestern New York State, as I've mentioned, our seasons can kind of go from early spring to like 90 degrees almost overnight in the summer. And so, it'll start off 50 like we are. Yesterday it was almost 60 degrees and sunny. Today's windy, rainy, and like 40. Tomorrow it might snow, then it's going to be 60. So the spring is much more volatile than our fall tends to be. So what you really don't want is to expose these to a lot of heat, because then the little broccoli florets, the broccolinis, will just open up and flower, and then it's really bitter and inedible. But this is actually going to go out in a pot in the next week or so. Usually when we hit April 1st, I'll plant this stuff. This can handle some frost. Your cruciferous vegetables, frost isn't going to kill this. A little bit of frost. I mean, obviously you don't want it buried in snow, but this is pretty tough. But look, it looks really nice and healthy. So let's take a look at our onions. We've got a whole bunch growing here. So I thought I would just talk a little bit about onion seedlings, and you can see it just looks like a mass here of onions, and it is. The way I like to do it is to basically just sprinkle a whole bunch on top of the soil, barely cover them, and then they germinate pretty quickly. But take a look at this. This is a good example. This is Weathersfield Red here, and you can see in there it just looks like grass almost. So when you go to plant these, each blade, so I'm just going to sacrifice one for the good of the video here. You can see that is what you plant in the ground. So you just basically stick it in the ground nice and high, and this will make one onion bulb. And let's see if I can just stick it back in there. I know I have plenty of them. I think I have no shortage, but I never want to waste any anyway. But that's how you plant onions, and so you end up with a lot, so you can share them with people. That's nice, because you think like in something like that, for example, there's probably 250 individual onions in there, I would bet. At least 200, and so you're not going to plant every one of them, most likely. But onions are super easy. I did make a video on it. If you're interested, I'll post it in the description box below last year. But typically for these, I'll plant them mid-April. So these are going to go out pretty soon. So here's our eggplants. They're a little slow down here, a little bit, behind, just because the basement's not as warm as it could be. I mentioned in one of the videos there are some advantages to having a cold basement. There are also some disadvantages. And if I had my druthers, the basement would be heated, so that we could just really crank the growth on this stuff. But there are some advantages too, and one of them is things like eggplants kind of grow a little slower to start with, which is kind of good, especially tomatoes too, because look at these tomatoes. They're already pretty big, and it's only going to be April 1st soon, so you don't want those getting too big on you down here. But on the subject of the eggplants, the ones that we have, they look healthy. They're doing pretty good. This row here is Matoyo, and Matoyo is a Japanese eggplant that's really sweet. It's a neat eggplant. It's a purple, kind of looks like a smaller version of a Black Beauty, kind of more oval, but a really good producer. No bitterness whatsoever. Just if you like eggplant, you would love Matoyo eggplant. So I'll be doing some videos on those this summer. The middle row here is Satsuma. I've never grown these before. That's a long green style, like a fingerling style eggplant. So I'm really excited to see how those do. I've had them. When we rented an apartment, our landlord grew them in a container and just had so many, he had like hundreds of those things. He gave us a bunch of them. They were really good. So that's Satsuma there. I got those from Baker Creek. This row is called Little Fingers, and I've grown those before. I also got them from Baker Creek. Little Fingers are really fun. They're maybe like 4 or 5 inches long, little eggplants. They're the long variety. They're awesome for grilling, sauteing, stir-frying, anything. And they have a great flavor. Again, I don't know about Satsuma. I mean, from what I remember, it was good. But none of these other ones have any bitterness whatsoever. So to me, that's a big thing in an eggplant. I don't like if they're bitter. You know, people say like soak them overnight, do this or that. I don't want to do that. I just want to eat the eggplant. So these are all really good varieties from what I remember or from what we've experienced. Here's some more eggplant. These are called Casper right here. And they're called that because they're white. So that's like a white oval eggplant. So we also have Black Beauty. Here they are. Doing pretty good. I have to thin a couple of them out of there. Do that right now. Hate doing it. No! I just hate, probably you do too, just can't stand thinning. It's the worst. I feel bad, you know, you want to keep every plant. I'm the person who has all these planters in the driveway all summer, and there's an eggplant trying to grow in something this big in August, you know. But Black Beauty, those are like the ones that you buy in the store, you know, the giant black eggplant. Time tested, proven, delicious. You know, your normal old eggplant. What most people would consider an eggplant if that just popped into their head. So that's our eggplant. Let's talk about one of the, of course, you know, they'll tell you, the star of the show, the tomatoes. So let's talk about our tomatoes. You know, and there's no shyness in the tomatoes whatsoever. I mean, these guys are doing really good. Look at these things. They're monsters already. They're not huge. They're probably 6 inches tall, but they're also really thick and stocky, so we'll talk about them. You know, these lights, I just keep saying these lights really work because they're so cheap and they're just easy for people. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Of course you can. I mean, I used to have my aquarium lights that I spent almost $300 on, and they worked great. They also took 3 or 4 times the electricity that these do. So these take a lot less power. I don't never have to replace the bulbs, and they're just easier to deal with than my aquarium light that wasn't meant to be suspended above plants, you know. These are Blue Beauty. This is Thorburn Lemon right here. It's a new one for us. We've grown Thorburn Terracotta quite a bit. This is Thorburn's Lemon Blush. This one is a Chocolate Pear. I've never grown that either, but I'm excited for that one. That's Thorburn Terracotta there. I've made a video on those. Love them. They're so good. The Thorburn Lemon Blush, same person, same source. This is the Abe Lincoln, trusty old heirloom. St. Pierre, look at that one. Isn't that kind of weird? That little guy. He's got his true leaves, but it grew kind of weird. But hey, here's another St. Pierre. Those were really old seeds too. They were like 3 or 4 years old, so those are the only 2 that I had. I had literally 2 seeds, and they both came up, but kind of small. You can see the difference in that container, all planted on the same day. Let's take a look at some other tomatoes for fun here. See what we have. And I mentioned this heating pad with these old curtain rods. That keeps, as you can see, you can get your hand under there. That keeps these roots from drying out and gets a little bit more warmth because my basement is so cold. I need a little bit of warmth. Pretty soon I won't need it anymore, but February is really chilly. So here we have Cherokee Purple in the front. Look at those. Those are doing really well. Zoom in on them. Nice and stocky. Nice looking plants. Cherokee Purple, as I mentioned in my video, is just one of those classic heirlooms. It's ugly, you know, as all get out. Some people think. I think it's beautiful. The more gnarly a tomato is, the tastier it is. It seems to be some kind of rule. These in the middle are Brandywine, and you can see, look at this is actually a really good example of, you can see what we talk about when we talk about potato leaf. See that there, that leaf on the Brandywine right there? See how it's shaped almost like a heart? And a normal tomato leaf for most other tomatoes, if we come down here, see how normal tomato leaves look. They're sort of spiky, they have many lobes to them. See? And then here's the Brandywine. I'll sort of move it over here. You can see the difference. See that? That's the difference between a potato leaf tomato and a non-potato leaf variety. You can really tell there. Oh, I can just smell it just from touching the leaves. So let's take a look at this tray. I'll turn it this way so you can see all the different things that are in here. So this one and this one here on the end, so this guy and the one in that far corner are Evil Olive, which I've never grown. They just sounded really cool. I like the name. It's a green cherry tomato that supposedly stays kind of crunchy, so I thought that was kind of fun. Like, that'll be a neat one to try. I always like to try. I always do the tried and true favorites, but then I also like to try some new things too. Which, if you're anything like me, is everything in the Baker Creek catalog. But we have limits, unfortunately. This is Black Crim, which is a beautiful tomato, old heirloom. Another dark, I tend to like the darker tomatoes, the black tomatoes, the dark reds, the purples, like the Blue Beauty. They just, to me, have a lot more flavor in general. Another Black Crim here. This is Rapunzel, which I made a video on. Cherry, very prolific. This year I decided to grow the tomatillos on purpose, and what I mean by that is usually they volunteer in our garden from previous years. They just reseed themselves, but I thought, you know what, this year I'm actually going to do it for real. So this is purple, and this is purple, and this is green tomatillo. Those plants kind of look like that. It's not that they're chlorotic. They just have that look to them. They're a greenish yellow anyway, in general. And then these are black cherries that are just starting for whatever reason. But that's that seed pack. Looking good. Okay, here's some peppers. We'll start with the ones over here, and I gotta thin them. I hate doing that. So what I'll do with these is I'll probably pull these out and replant some of them, because these are Santa Fe. And Santa Fe, if you've never grown them, they're like, they kind of look like a jalapeno, but they're all different colors. They'll be yellow, red, orange. They're really, really fun. They're a little bit milder than a jalapeno, so they're spicy pepper, but they have some sweetness to them, and you know, they have a nice kick, but they're really good all-around pepper. Santa Fe is one you should definitely consider growing. You can probably get it at the big box stores already started too, if it's too late to start them where you are, but those are a fun one. Here's Habanada, which is a heatless habanero. We've grown these for a few years. We've had marginal luck with them. I mean, look, they're not the most vigorous for us. You see everything else here. And then you see these little guys. But they do pick up. You know, they do okay. I really like them. They're really tasty. They have a smoky sweetness. They're just like a habanero, but no heat, which is really cool. Here's Advarsky. Last year I did not have good luck with peppers, and I think one of the reasons why is we had first of all, we had a really weird spring. It was snowing until almost Memorial Day, which, yes, people say that can happen around here, but in reality it almost never does. Last year was one of the years it did, though. And so a lot of that stuff just got a slow start, and then, you know, the ground was cold. That's the other byproduct of that. It takes into June for the ground to heat up, and by the time everything got going, I also put them in a probably marginal spot of the garden, and the plants got huge. They got a lot of flowers in September, you know, so unfortunately we had really healthy plants that produced almost nothing by the time fall came. So this year I'm going to grow a lot of peppers in containers, because then the dirt heats up faster. I can move them around if I need to. And I like container gardening too, so peppers are a fantastic thing to grow in a container. They like to be close together. They like to be bunched up. They do well. Here's this is like a Hungarian, forget what it's called, like a cheese pepper, the ones with all the different lobes. That's just sort of a shortened version of the name. I forget exactly what it was. We got these seeds a few years ago from Baker Creek. I never had luck with them before. So I'm hoping this year is different, but it's like those multi-lobed peppers. I don't know how else to describe them. Hopefully that name, you could look them up if you're wondering. These are Macedonian peppers, and look, those definitely have to be thinned. I'll plant them out. I'm not going to thin those, because Macedonians, that pepper is a very long pepper. It almost looks like it has bark on it, as stripes. They're amazing. Everyone I've given these to loves them. They're pretty hot. You know, if you try to cook fresh with them, they're hot. One pepper is going to do you for a meal. But we have 3 different flats of them there because they're so popular with everyone around here in the neighborhood. We share them with everyone. But they dry really, really well. So here's our biggie chilies. They're doing awesome. Look at those. Nice and green, healthy, doing well. Now, look at them under the light, way under there. See, they look yellow under there, just like everything else. That's just the LED. So if you're looking at, you're like, man, all the seedlings look really yellow. It's because of the lighting. See, you pull them out, look how green they are. But biggie chilies are like an Anaheim pepper, basically. A giant Anaheim. They're really good. They're just a little bit of heat. They're almost like a green pepper, like a bell pepper, but with some kick. So they're really nice all-purpose pepper. Let's see what else we have. These are the Pippin's Golden Honey that I'm bringing over. Really fun-looking pepper. Look at those. They have kind of like a neat, see the leaf has a mottling on it. I've never grown these. I saw these in the Baker Creek. I think they're new this year to Baker Creek, but they're supposedly like a sweet hot pepper, I think. They just look neat. The plants are kind of purplish. I think the peppers start purple and then turn orange. So that's going to be a fun one. I've never grown it, but it already looks cool. So here's another new one. And these have to be thin too. These are called Pretty and Sweet. I have no idea what these are like. I just saw this package at Lowe's, I think, when I was in there walking around. And I always look at the seeds. So I pretty much always buy seeds, even though I have a million of them. Maybe you can relate. But these Pretty and Sweet, they're like, if you've ever seen those ornamental hot peppers that are really tiny, like maybe an inch long, and plants are covered with them, but they're too hot to eat. I guess this is a sweet pepper version of that. So the peppers are edible and sweet. So we'll see. I'll make a video on these when they see how they come out. These will go in a container for sure. This is Mini Red Bell. These are fun. Now, Baker Creek didn't have these this year. This is seeds I had from last year left over. But the Mini Red Bell, they literally, their name is Truth in Advertising. They're a Mini Red Bell pepper, and they're really good. They're really sweet, crunchy. They're really good just to kind of snack on while you're out in the garden. I saw this year they had the Mini Bell collection, but I don't like those. I don't like collections myself because I like to know exactly what I'm planting. Here's Jimmy Nardello, one of our favorite sweet red peppers. It's one of those long sweet reds. Great flavor. One of the best flavored peppers, I think. And some part of me says, well, why don't I just grow basically 3 or 4 kinds and a ton of them? Yeah, I just like the variety mostly, but Jimmy Nardellos are ones I always go back to, is those kind of like when I need a pepper from the garden for cooking. This is one of the ones I go to. We'll make videos on these. I didn't really make videos last year on the peppers because, like I said, I didn't have a great pepper year for the reasons I talked about. So here's a Rose con Pollo, which is a really fun pepper. It's a Caribbean cooking pepper. Tiny little bit of heat. There's some kick to it, but it's a really good smoky flavor. They have like a really curled appearance. They sort of look like, they sort of look like a Scotch bonnet, but they're not as hot and nowhere near as hot but they get the smokiness and the sweetness. I was kind of bummed out I didn't see these in Baker Creek's catalog this year. These are a couple years old, these seeds, so I only had like 4 or 5 seeds and three, and it looks like one's popping up there. Come in, but you know, these make really nice bushy plants with a lot of peppers. Really good. If you can find a Rose con Pollo, they're a great pepper to grow. So that's our tomatoes and our peppers. Let's see what else we've got here in the back. Check out this this planter. Look at all that moss on there. You know, it's funny, most of these got really dried out, but this obviously didn't. This is over moist. That's what that means. Yeah, it must have been a little bit too wild on the water with these, and these plants don't look too happy, these basils. That can happen sometimes. You know, it's funny, the other ones seem fine, but these ones are obviously affected, so I'll let them dry out. But that's basil. Nothing real special going on there, but just truth in truth in video there. Not everything comes out perfect the way you want it to. No big deal. We have plenty of basil seeds. Here we have broccoli, which, just like the broccoli rabe, is going to be going outside shortly because we want to get this growing outside before it gets hot. I've never grown this. Is Decicio broccoli. It's just another kind of broccoli. I've just never tried it, but there's 6 plants here. I love fresh broccoli. I'm a huge fan of broccoli. I love broccoli, but problem with growing broccoli, we did it the first year we were here. We planted like about 1/3 of our garden of broccoli as a spring crop, and it grew great and it got huge, and you get like a head of broccoli, and that's really it. I mean, yeah, I know they get the side shoots, but those are kind of incidental. Once you harvest the head, you've just got this huge plant with nothing really on it. That's sort of a bummer with the broccoli. So what I do is I'll grow it in containers now, and then once it's done, I just plant cooking greens in there, and that's worked out pretty well. So here's some things. So here we have some Swiss chard. Now, I mentioned before that I'm not the biggest fan in the world of these peat pots, and I don't usually use them unless it's something that I want to transplant without really bothering the roots. And so that's the truth for the lettuce that I have here, and also Swiss chard. If you ever tried to transplant Swiss chard, you know it just wants to flop around, doesn't like to be transplanted. Well, here I can just break off a square or two, stick it in the ground, you know, and it's good to go. So I've got some, it says pink Swiss chard, looks like red Swiss chard to me, but maybe it's pink. Then we have yellow Swiss chard or orange Swiss chard, and then red, which looks suspiciously just like the pink, but it's all good, so I don't mind. Swiss chard is one of my favorite things in the world to eat. I love Swiss chard. And then here we have some lettuces, which I always like to start early. Lettuce is another thing that doesn't want the heat of the sun, the hot summer sun. So you either got to keep it in the shade, which is why containers are great for it. You can move it around your yard, stick it somewhere cooler. But this is the Paris Island Cause. This is the solar flare behind it. So we're going to plant those in some containers pretty soon. Looks really healthy and happy. And that's, you know, the peat pots come in handy for that, because then you can just break off the cells and plant them. I don't usually use peat pots except for lettuce, Swiss chard, when I start it inside, which I don't always, and things like melons and cucumbers that I'm going to make a video showing how I do that. So thank you for watching our seedling room tour video for late March of 2021. If you enjoy our content, please help us build the channel by subscribing, sharing our videos on social media, liking our videos, commenting. We're a pretty new channel. Our join date was years ago when I had a container gardening blog and meant to do a YouTube channel, but I never did until about a year ago. So, and it's only been the last few months we've really been consistent about uploading content. So we got a lot of great stuff in the works. If you enjoy our videos on orchard culture, gardening, seedlings, any of that homesteading kind of stuff, please subscribe and share our videos. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.